Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 4. Let's see what happens.
It's hard to understand how someone could be in love with two people. And I honestly, I really don't care what either of them look like. I think is this. Irina, she's a little immature, and she plays, like, games, you know? Like girl games to try to win a man. You know what I'm talking about. She tries to create a little bit of tension.
Yeah.
That concerns me.
Yeah, you would think that would be a red flag for a lot of things. Bliss apparently didn't do any of that. Bliss was the tip of the iceberg, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe Irina, once you get past the tough, immature shell, there's a wonderful person there that is easily accessed. Who knows? Some people are like that. Some people, once you get past that shell, they sort of lock in on a mode and you never see that side of them again. It's possible. But you would think that Zack would, yeah. If I were in Zack's position, based on what we've seen here, I would just opt out. I'd be like, I can't commit to either one because of the whole picture here. Or I should try to date both once we get out of this thing. I don't know. But he says that sounds weird, but you know, it's an option. He says he's in love with two people and he thinks like, that's weird. It does happen. Polyamorous people exist. And all of us have the potential to at least be on that spectrum, in my opinion. Maybe not long term, but in the short term, that can happen. Because, you know, what is love, right? According to the song. What exactly are we talking about? We tend to think of it as this hard scientific thing, but it's not. It's a feeling, it's a value, it's a decision, it's a intention, it's a vibe. It's not this thing that can only exist for one person. And of course, we understand that when we apply it to various different kinds of love. If you have more than one child, you love all those children a lot. And if you have another child, you don't love all the children less. It's not a quantifiable thing. And so you could absolutely love two people, especially at this phase of relationship. Anyway, you just would, I don't know. We don't know much about Bliss because they haven't shown her, and I suspect that she doesn't go into the next phase because they're not showing her. But at the very least, it's like, Zack, red flags. Red flags. And he even recognizes it. It's like he heard from Bliss and believed it and maybe even knows things about Irina that tell him about that general immaturity. And so I imagine a lot of people watching. Now, who knows? Maybe they'll be in a great relationship. I guess we'll find out.
You know, there's been some shit that's gone down. And sometimes you can have blinders on about someone. Bliss really doesn't like Irina. And I think Bliss thinks Irina is like a bad person. I really trust Irina, like on a deep level. And it's crazy because I don't really trust many people, like at all. And trust is really hard for me with Irina.
Okay, so he's saying trust is really hard. So it's possible that he has a version of this trauma and defenses that are similar to Irina. Maybe even he emerged out of something like that or some different defense that was equally problematic or something. And he gets each other. And that can often be something that can bond two people, is that they both went through similar things and understand each other's rough edges because of that. They might even, these individuals, have a hard time relating to people that haven't been through difficulties like that. And they don't want to be with someone that didn't go through those. It's a weird box to check as you're dating. It's like, I want someone just as traumatized as me, but you know, it depends. But so I don't know. He's been through a lot. He hasn't exhibited any issues, but we don't see everything about him. So it's possible that he does get her and does imagine that she would get him in a way because of their issues. And so there's a possibility that even though she does have these concerns, he does have these concerns about her, it actually doesn't turn him off. It doesn't turn him away from her. He's like, well, it's not great, but I don't know. I feel like I get her. I understand her. And there's a temptation in, I don't know if this is what's happening, but if you're in Zack's shoes, there's a temptation to equate, for better or for worse, it could go either way, but you might equate honest viciousness, for example, as an indication that the individual is trustworthy, in that what you see is what you get. You don't like the fact that they're vicious or that they explode or they have rough edges, but at the very least you know what they're feeling they will exhibit because they've proven themselves to exhibit actions based on emotions that normal people, other people would suppress. And so they wear their heart in their sleeve. They can't help it. There's something alluring about that. It's something that is secure about that. It feels safe because you know that you can trust someone, that the individual isn't going to hide. Now, we don't know if that's generalizable to Irina's personality. It's possible someone could be that way and also hide a lot of things. But there is something appealing about that potentially, right? So maybe that's where he's come from. The other possibility is that he also is vicious. And who knows? But I was just talking with a colleague of mine who is an attorney, and she was telling me that research shows, and I seem to remember coming across this research, but I'd forgotten. But anyway, when you test people's level of psychopathy on average in different professions, you have CEOs will be near the top of the list, and then below that, according to my friend, I didn't look up the research, the second profession in the United States are lawyers and attorneys, which I believe. Now, I want to be clear. People will interpret this sometimes to mean like, so what, like every CEO and every lawyer is a psychopath? They all lack empathy. They all have antisocial personality disorder. No, that is not what the research shows. It just shows that these professions have a higher rate than other professions. And that rate could move from, say, 2% in the population on average to 3% or something. So it's not like it goes from 2% to 50%. I can't remember the exact effect range, but it's very minor in terms of the amount. Now, of course, you can have a lot of traits of these personality disorders without actually having the personality disorder. But even there, it's not as if all CEOs or all attorneys have traits of psychopathy. It's just a slightly higher rate. Anyway, my point is that I wonder if for Zack, he's somewhere on that spectrum. He has not exhibited any psychopathic traits at all. So I want to say that. But according to my conversation yesterday with my attorney friend, there's a higher rate of that personality spectrum direction. And Irina, given that viciousness, again, I'm not going to label it psychopathic, but it's a tick in the column. And I wonder if for Zack, he can relate to her in that way.
Irina, it's like, this woman would have my back at every step of the way.
Yeah, I can imagine, I don't know, but I can imagine that for Zack, the way he feels Irina's energy and Bliss's energy is that Bliss is really wanting to be with Zack, at least a little bit that we saw, but Bliss isn't like obsessed with Zack. Whereas Irina seems much more intense, much more needy, if you will. And you could interpret that as a healthy neediness, whereas, I need my wife, and I hope my wife needs me for certain things. Neediness is okay. Neediness is human. Neediness is healthy. It bonds. It helps us to depending on each other, which is good. But it could also be something that is on the pathological side of things where you need people too much. So Irina does seem to have some of that issue, and that could play into this mini cult-like behavior that we see between Micah and Irina, that her neediness will be expressed through this desperation of, I need to connect with someone and I need to establish, like one of the things that I would see clients would do when they came from trauma and isolation, especially if they were moving to another school, was they were more prone to use drugs and alcohol, even at school, because it's this instant bonding agent. Or being a gang is another thing that would happen. That if you're insecure and you're a little lonely, and say you like to smoke cigarettes or you like to smoke weed or whatever, then if you find that person that also likes to do that, then you instantly have a bond. You instantly have a reason why you're together, and you have an in-group and an out-group. There's the two of you or the three of you, and there's everyone else. And you have to isolate yourselves from the rest of the school. Maybe you go behind the dumpsters, or you go to the bathrooms, or you go off campus and you're smoking cigarettes. And even though you might share nothing in common, but because you have this instant bonding thing, you have a friend. And so for Irina and Micah, it could be something like that, where they're looking for something that they can do that will differentiate them from other people, so it will clearly delineate, like, we have each other because we're so different from everyone else. I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with other reasons. But it sounds like Zack's leaning towards Irina, which is, according to the edit of the show, it seems like that's where it's headed.
Incredibly deep connection. Fuck, I love her mind. Like, her mind. Like, just the way she thinks. Like, it's so fucking attractive. And I think like when the chemistry fades, we'll still be really good friends.
Yeah, it sounds like Zack for Bliss feels like I have friend energy with you, tremendous friend energy with you, but I'm not drawn to you. He even said that to Irina, basically. And yeah, I find most people in mainstream American culture anyway will go with what they feel passionate about rather than what their logic tells them. And, there's different ways to live your life, but I'm of that culture, and so I value that as well. But obviously there's pros and cons to that.
I gotta make a decision.
And if I were his therapist, I would throw out there that there's a possibility that some of the things he's attracted to have to do with some of his issues with his own mom. We often will be attracted or at least feel comfortable with things that we grew up with, good or bad. If you had a parent that was vicious, chaotic, callous, uncaring, not very considerate, and you became familiar with that. So one, you equate love with that. And it's hard to uncouple those things. So then later on, when you see that, you say, oh, this is someone that I might be in love with. This is what will result in people having quote unquote bad pickers, right? They will be attracted to consistently people that are reminiscent of the traumas they went through growing up. It happens a lot. We also are, in my model and the model of psychoanalytic therapy of repetition compulsion and object relations and other kinds of things that I could get into, but this urge, subconscious, to recreate what happened in the past because we're subconsciously trying to correct for what happened. We need to recreate the past so we can have it work out differently this time, and that will feel more satisfying because we feel like we're correcting for the past. The pitfall to that is we might so effectively create the past that we actually are just stuck in it once again and re-traumatizing ourselves. So I don't know. It's just like, but I'm guessing we're going to see what kind of, because once they go on the honeymoon thing, then we start to see like the real Irina and the real Zack, because we just don't really know yet. So I guess we'll find out.
I'm just having this is a lot.
Oh God, this is so much.
I'm
just drunk
just
alcohol.
very overwhelmed.
Good or bad?
Both.
I just don't want there to be any ickiness, and I want to end this with just happiness either way, and it's gonna be hard no matter what.
I think he's confused. We're all.
This is good. This is good. I think in these reality shows they'll often push people, or there's a tendency for cast members to want to play it up for the cameras and have a lot of conflict. And I think it looks fake to me. I think people generally want to get along. And so they're now getting along, seemingly. At least they're able to have a conversation. And Irina's really confusing. It is a very different presentation. There's times when you wouldn't think anything was unusual about her personality, like now, where she's being human and listening. And then other times when it's really not like that at all. Now, I'm guessing some people would look at this and say, well, this is all just an act because she already knows that she won. And so, I don't know, but let's see how this conversation goes.
Have peace with each other, and he's going through it, and I think this between us is really hurting him too. Let's just be cool. Not only for him, but for us. That's all I wanted to say, but thanks for listening and being open to talking.
And I think the world of you, and what's meant to be will be, and I'll never have any hard feelings towards you or Zack or anyone.
Same.
Bliss is being super cool about it. Irina is reciprocating, but Bliss is really leading the charge with a lot of maturity, a lot of adult-like behavior, healthy behavior.
This isn't me versus Irina. It's really about Zack and me, or Zack and Irina, and I'm not going to be dragged into any sort of, petty competition with her.
I could do it this way.
Yes. So often on these shows, the fighting will be between the Irinas and the Blisses. That's not logical to me. And Bliss just laid it out logically. It's this isn't between me and Irina. It's between me and Zack and Irina and Zack, and it's up to him to choose. So I'm not gonna fight her. I'm not gonna be in conflict with her. It's up to Zack. He's gonna make a choice. Okay. Well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.